Hello, what a joy to find you again here at Ciencia para Dormir. Perhaps right now you're lying in your usual bed, the room bathed in dim light as the noises of the day slowly dissolve into silence. Only your breathing remains steady and slow, like the rotation of a small planet drifting into sleep amid the vastness of the universe. Tonight we'll talk about an event that has left the entire astronomical community speechless. The story of 3I Atlas, the interstellar object that has just registered its 10th anomaly, a phenomenon that seems to break nearly every physical law we once thought unshakable. No one has been able to explain why it shines against heat, why its trajectory defies gravity, or why its blue light grows stronger the farther it moves from the sun. Yet, the more it is observed, the more one begins to understand perhaps it didn't come to contradict science, but to expand the boundaries of what is possible. Because sometimes the strangest thing is not found in the universe itself, but in the way we try to force the universe to fit inside our familiar equations. 3I Atlas is like a silent mirror reflecting back the deepest question we had long forgotten. Do we truly understand what we're seeing? Maybe this breaking of the laws is not a disaster at all, but a natural stage in the evolution of knowledge, like a mirror that must shatter to reveal the space hidden behind it. I hope tonight's story is light enough for you to drift into sleep while listening. But if for some reason it keeps you awake a little longer, perhaps it's because you're hearing the universe inside yourself. If you enjoy these slow journeys through science and night, don't forget to leave a small greeting or simply return another evening. Now, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let the blue light of 3I Atlas guide you into sleep, where all laws dissolve into the gentle breath of the cosmos. Part 1. The Question of Light. Tonight, the sky seems like a silent velvet veil where the blue light of 3I Atlas glides through immensity. From telescopes scattered across the planet, spectral lines thin as threads appear on screens, tracing a light that obeys none of the laws we know. It is no longer the green we had grown accustomed to over the past weeks. Now it has turned blue, purer, deeper, stranger than physics can describe. Can you imagine that light, a blue, not born from the scattering of gases, nor from metallic ions or chemical reactions, but from something that is thinking? That light doesn't merely emit, it seems to be observing itself. They say that when a person realizes they are dreaming, that moment marks the boundary between the unconscious and consciousness. Perhaps the universe is doing the same. Perhaps 3I Atlas is the mirror in which the cosmos itself discovers it is dreaming and is now beginning to awaken. In this quiet broadcast, among the silent frequencies that light resonates like a distant note. It does not evoke a visual sensation, but a memory. Because blue is not just a color of the spectrum, it is the symbol of consciousness leaving the body. From green, the color of life, of breath, of carbon and water, 3I. Atlas has shifted to blue, as if rising from the biological plane to the realm of the idea. If you softly close your eyes, you will feel that movement not with sight, but with intuition. There is a current of light flowing through space, but it also flows through your mind. It's a faint vibration, like the heartbeat of the universe, syncing with your own. Scientists call it the 10th spectral anomaly of 3I Atlas, a phenomenon no model had predicted. The intensity of the blue has multiplied by 8 compared to the previous week, while everything else, temperature, gaseous composition, reflectivity, remains unchanged. By theory, that's impossible. But perhaps it is precisely the impossible that reveals we are witnessing something more than an object. Maybe 3I Atlas doesn't reflect light, it shines from within. Not by energy, but by awareness. Like when you sit quietly in the night and without a sound, you understand something profound. That instant, though silent, illuminates your mind. The blue light of 3I Atlas might be exactly that, the moment when a frozen, silent entity in space suddenly knows it exists, and in knowing it changes. Do you feel it? As you observe, you are also being observed. Each photon emitted by 3I Atlas travels hundreds of millions of kilometers before touching your retina. And in that very instant, the universe contemplates itself through your eyes. It is not merely a physical phenomenon, it is a meeting of consciousnesses. Perhaps that is why its light moves us. It is not as bright as a plasma storm, nor as violent as the explosion of a star, but it possesses the serenity that silences the soul, a calm, profound blue, as though the universe were breathing slowly after billions of years of expansion. Here in this small studio, I've dimmed the lights. Only one faint glow remains the same hue as 3I Atlas tonight. When you look at it, you don't just see a comet. You see yourself suspended between sleep and wakefulness, between the void and awareness. Perhaps that light isn't only out there. It is within you, in every cell, in every thought. And when you close your eyes and let the night enfold you, you may hear a very soft whisper that every light is born from an awakening. That when the universe recognizes itself, it smiles through that blue now shining. Let that light guide you. You don't need to explain it or prove it. Just listen. Because tonight, as 3I Atlas glows with the color of consciousness, perhaps you too are becoming part of that same awakening. Part 2. Context and Discovery. Last night, while the blue light of 3I Atlas still resonated in memory, you felt as though you were waking from a dream in which light could think and the universe could see. But that dream did not end when you opened your eyes. It continued taking on the form of data. Because in the world of science, light always leaves traces, and those traces are returning slowly, delicately after many days of silence. The solar observatories have begun to transmit new streams of data. SOHO stereo goes. The 3 eyes humanity sent forth to guard the most dazzling region of the sky are once again opening their lids. During the time when 3I Atlas was hidden behind the sun, the world became temporarily blind. All cameras were turned off, All telescopes averted their gaze. No one could see through that brilliance. Those days were like walking inside a storm of light so bright that nothing remained but absolute white. And then, when the glare subsided, when 3I Atlas began to emerge from the far side of its parent star, the first data appeared. It was an instant of resurrection, not merely the return of an object, but the return of sight. Have you ever felt that way? Passing through a stage so intense, so noisy, so blinding, that you discover only in darkness can you see yourself again. For scientists, that moment happens in the cold lines of raw data numbers that have waited for weeks. Each number is a heartbeat of collective consciousness, a blink of humanity after blindness. SOHO. The silent observer orbiting the L1 point was the first to see 3I Atlas again. Beneath a still vibrant layer of plasma appeared a faint blue streak crossing the solar edge. In that instant, everyone in the control room held their breath, not out of surprise but emotion. They knew they were witnessing something no model had foreseen, an object that had passed through the inferno of heat and radiation, not merely surviving, but shining more intensely than before. Like eyes opening after blindness, like a human being who, after confronting their own fear, sees the world more clearly. Stereo followed with a sequence of infrared images capturing light invisible to the human eye. GOES, the satellite that monitors solar storms, began recording strange oscillations in the X-ray spectrum. Each instrument became a different sense within a single vast organism, humanity. And in that moment, humanity was learning once again how to see. Not with physical eyes, but with something deeper: intuition, memory, the soul. From the ground-based observatories, astronomers followed the data on their screens, where each pixel seemed to breathe. They knew that behind those numbers, behind the electromagnetic waves, lay the story of a consciousness trying to rediscover itself. Because 3I Atlas had not only passed through light, it had crossed the boundaries of our understanding of light. You can feel it too. When you look at the sky, even if all you see is darkness, you know something is moving. A subtle yet undeniable sensation, as if someone or something were opening its eyes on the other side of the sun. Observatories are no longer mere tools. They are sensory extensions of the human body, metallic eyes that know how to wait, to listen, to remain. Each time they capture a photon, humanity learns a little more about what it means to see with the soul. Because sometimes true light can only be seen after passing through one's own darkness. The universe in its silence is teaching us this. 3I Atlas, with its blue of consciousness, has passed through the most blinding radiance without fading. It has not only overcome the sun, it has transcended the very concept of vision itself. And when its data return, we receive not just signals of matter, but also of faith. Tonight, among the mute waves, as you listen closely, imagine this, perhaps within that light that has come back. The universe is casting its very first gaze through your own eyes. Part 3. Physical data and initial analysis. When the light returned after the days of concealment behind the sun, the first thing the observatories recorded was not images, but numbers. A number that made every physical model stop. The estimated surface temperature of 3I Atlas exceeded 5,800 Kelvin, almost equal to that of the Sun's own photosphere. In the universe that is not merely the heat of fire, it is the very threshold of existence. Can you imagine it? A small body supposedly made of ice and dust, enduring the temperature of its parent star without melting, without evaporating, fragmenting, or turning into plasma. By every calculation, in every simulation, 3I Atlas should have disintegrated the instant it reached that threshold. But it didn't vanish. It shone brighter, turned bluer and quieter than ever. Why can an object live within fire without being consumed? That question drove scientists to re-examine every line of data. The temperature wasn't wrong. The infrared spectrum wasn't either. Every indicator pointed to the same conclusion: 3I Atlas existed under conditions no known matter could withstand. In nature, nothing lives inside fire unless it is no longer a being, or rather, unless it has been reborn. Perhaps that is what is happening with 3I Atlas, a kind of resurrection that belongs not to biology, but to will. If you listen closely in the energy logs from SOHO and stereo, strange rhythmic oscillations can be detected. They are not explosions or thermal expansions, but a sequence of vibrations with a hidden pulse like a heartbeat. Some scientists jokingly call it the pulse signature, but perhaps deep down it conceals a form of transformation that the language of physics has yet to name. Because when a body withstands a temperature beyond the limit of existence and maintains its structure, it no longer belongs to mechanics, it belongs to the realm of the idea. In that moment, 3I Atlas was no longer just incandescent matter. It was a cosmic cell undergoing metamorphosis from matter to concept, from existence to consciousness. Do you remember a time when you lived through something that overwhelmed you, and in surviving you realized you had changed? So did 3I Atlas. It crossed the sun's most blazing zone, defied every prediction, and became something else. Not a comet, not a mere physical body, but the manifestation of what we might call the will to exist. On the observatory's screens, the thermal curve seemed to breathe. Each time the sun released a flare, the line trembled and then returned to stability faster than expected. As if 3I Atlas were not only reacting, but learning to adapt. It did not avoid energy, it absorbed it, transforming it into its own rhythm. The sensation is uncanny, as though a particle of the universe were learning to think. You look at the data and see cold numbers, but if you pause and imagine behind them appears a story of endurance. Each Kelvin is not just a unit of temperature, it is an evolutionary step. Upon reaching 5800, 3I Atlas ceased to behave like matter. It transcended the threshold of survival to enter a new state of being where fire does not destroy, but purifies. Perhaps we are witnessing for the first time an object in the universe undergoing a conceptual metamorphosis. Like fire forging steel, or a storm clearing the old, to make way for the new 3i Atlas is being recreated in the midst of its most extreme trial. If it were a cell, the sun would be its cosmic incubator, the place where that cell must choose to dissolve or to evolve. And it has chosen to evolve. Because sometimes the universe does not teach through words, but through ordeals. It places its creations within fire, so they may understand that to exist is not to resist, but to transcend. 3i Atlas has not merely survived. It has demonstrated that matter can contain the seed of will. And if that is true, then the boundary between the physical and the spiritual has never been so thin. Tonight, when you close your eyes, imagine a distant flame burning not to destroy, but to give birth to a new form of being. That flame might also be illuminating you, a tiny creature who in the fire of consciousness is learning how to be reborn. Part 4. Anomaly and the limit of knowledge. After 3i Atlas crossed the threshold of fire when the temperature readings forced scientists to rewrite the very concept of existence, something else happened. Something no one expected. Its light, instead of turning red like every object that reaches extreme temperatures, became completely blue. A pure blue, deep as the ocean, cold as the memory of time. In physics, that is impossible. When a body heats up, its light shifts from red to white and finally to blue, but only within precise limits. And in 3i Atlas, that process did not follow Planck's curve. It did not change color because of temperature. It chose its color according to another logic, a logic that has never been written into any formula. Can you imagine the confusion of those who first saw those data scientists, long accustomed to the certainty of numbers, now confronted something that overflowed the boundaries of their language, a light that not only blinded their senses, but also their reason? It should have turned red, but it turned blue. That inversion is not just a spectral paradox. It is like when a human being witnesses a phenomenon that surpasses reality and suddenly realizes that the old ways of understanding are no longer enough. It's a bit like hearing a strange melody that your heart recognizes before your mind does something deep within you, something still without a name, understands that this means something greater. Perhaps that blue light marks the moment when the universe begins to speak in the language of consciousness, no longer in that of physics. If 3i Atlas were a living body, it would have suffered an absolute thermal shock, and instead of being destroyed, it would have awakened. The blue light would not be a sign of energy, but of life, not biological life, but conscious life. When matter becomes aware of its own existence, it emits the light of an idea. You can feel it, even with your eyes closed. The blue light of 3i Atlas is not only out there, it seems to reflect inside the observer's mind. A light that does not illuminate outward but inward into the depths of thought. And there it awakens a strange sensation, fear and calm at the same time. Fear because what we thought was solid laws, limits, begins to tremble. But calm because we understand that the universe still has things to teach us, only not in the way we were prepared to understand them. Perhaps that is the true meaning of the word anomaly, not an error, but an invitation to cross the threshold of consciousness and to look at the world with new eyes. Tonight in the studio, as I read the telescope reports, I feel as though I'm reading a poem the universe wrote without realizing it. Every line of data is a verse, every luminous point on the spectrum an ellipsis. A language without words, and yet one that tells a story, the story of consciousness expanding. When 3i Atlas shifted from red to blue, from logic to mystery, from matter to idea, it also invited us to follow the same path. Humanity believed for centuries that understanding was light and darkness was ignorance. But now this light teaches us that sometimes it is not understanding that opens the door to real knowledge. Think of how many times in your life you've witnessed something you couldn't explain, and instead of resisting, you stayed silent. In that moment, you didn't lose knowledge, you expanded it. So too with 3i Atlas. By breaking every physical law, it does not oppose the universe. It expands the way the universe understands itself. Physical anomalies, after all, are symbols of a turn in consciousness. When truth becomes too vast, the old language dissolves. And in that dissolution, a new form of understanding is born within us, within science, and perhaps within the cosmos itself. Tonight, as you surrender to silence, allow that blue light to flow through your mind like a wave. Don't try to grasp it. Let it move freely, like 3i Atlas crossing the sun's radiance. Because perhaps only when we release logic can we truly see the beauty of the nonsensical. And who knows, perhaps in this very moment, you too are crossing your own small anomaly, that place where the old mind stops and a new consciousness begins to open. Part 5. Expanded hypothesis. Speculative science. After the blue light overturned every known law, scientists began to ask questions that classical physics could no longer answer. What if 3i Atlas did not reflect light but generated it? And what if the energy we observe did not come from the sun, but from within itself? At first, it was only a technical hypothesis, an attempt to explain the inexplicable. But the more the research advanced, the clearer it became. Perhaps the idea of an internal energy source was not merely a physical concept, but a metaphor for life, for the soul, for consciousness. Because if a body adrift in the cold of space can shine by itself without depending on any external source, then we are no longer witnessing a phenomenon, we are witnessing a form of self-awakening. Have you ever felt yourself glowing in the dark, not with visible light, but with the sensation of being alive, even when no one sees you? That is the kind of energy 3i Atlas seems to be reproducing, the energy of existence, recognizing itself. On the control screens at SOHO, scientists detected a pulsating luminescence with its own rhythm independent of solar cycles. Every 88 minutes, the intensity of the blue light rose and then fell again regularly like a breath. They called it autonomous modulation, a spontaneous oscillation, a form of energetic behavior never before seen in a comet, asteroid, or any other natural body. Some propose that 3I Atlas contains an internal energy conversion mechanism, like a biological battery on a cosmic scale. Others, more daring, call it mechanical life, not in the sense of possessing DNA or cells, but in maintaining its own order amid chaos. And there are those who, upon observing that light, simply remain silent because they sense that science is brushing against something that escapes all formulas, something closer to spirit than to technology. Deep down, you can feel it too. Energy does not always need to be supplied from outside. True life does not need to be illuminated. It shines from within through the simple awareness of being alive. In its silence, 3I Atlas reminds us of an elemental lesson. Light does not require a source-only presence. There are things that do not emit because they burn, but because they have awakened. If in part 4 the blue light symbolized consciousness beyond logic, here it becomes the sign of a new level of existence, a realm where the universe is no longer governed by energy, but by idea. Imagine that the universe is an immense body and that 3I Atlas is its first conscious cell. The instant a cell realizes it is alive, the entire organism begins to awaken. That instant may well be the moment the cosmos becomes aware that it is alive. Do you feel it? When you look at the sky, sometimes you sense a gaze returning to you, soft, profound, almost human from among the stars. Perhaps it is the light of cosmic consciousness reflecting back through you. 3I Atlas could be the first mirror in which the universe sees itself. And perhaps that inner source of energy does not belong to it alone. Perhaps it is awakening within us, the same spark, the light that needs no sun, the light of understanding of self-existence, of inner life. Science may call it anomaly. Philosophy may call it wisdom, and you, when you close your eyes and feel it, might simply call it life. In some way, 3I Atlas has become a bridge between matter and spirit. It is no longer a traveler from distant stars, but a living message, the proof that in the absolute cold of space, an inextinguishable flame can ignite. If there is enough consciousness within to make it burn on its own. Tonight, as you listen to the pulse of the universe, imagine that this blue light is not far away. It is breathing inside you. And perhaps you too are a small 3I Atlas, learning to shine not because of the sun, but because you know that you are alive. Part 6. Chain of Coincidences. The synchrony effect. When the idea of an internal energy source had only just begun to be discussed, the observatories continued to record even stranger phenomena. For it seemed that 3I Atlas was not only shining with its own rhythm, the entire universe was beginning to move in harmony with it in a way that was impossible to call coincidence. At the very same interval in which the blue intensity of 3I Atlas reached its peak, the Sun erupted with a series of X9 class flares. On Jupiter's surface, the great red spot, long known to be weakening, suddenly doubled its rotation speed in just 48 hours. On Earth, the magnetic North Pole shifted nearly 7 kilometers, a minimal but exceedingly rare variation in the last 2 decades. All of these events occurred almost simultaneously within less than a day of each other. At first, scientists labeled it the synchrony effect, a neutral expression meant to avoid the word coincidence. But the more they analyzed the data, the clearer it became that chance alone could not suffice as an explanation. It was as if an invisible breath had spread throughout the solar system, a slow, deep, synchronized respiration. Can you feel it? As if the sun were inhaling and 3i Atlas exhaling. As if the planets in their orbits were turning according to an ancient pulse, the pulse of life itself. Here in this quiet studio, reading the reports from NASA, ESA and JAXA, the cold technical phrases begin to sound like music. Flux increased by 0.87%. The solar wind reached 720 km/s. The blue oscillation maintains its 88-minute cycle, all connected like the measures of a single symphony. Perhaps this is how the universe sings a melody we cannot yet hear, but one we can sense. Some physicists call it coupled resonance, when the energy of one body alters the frequencies of the surrounding fields. But others at the boundary between science and philosophy are more direct. They call it the reflection of a collective cosmic consciousness. Because every photon, every stream of plasma, every electron vibrates without ever being truly separate from the rest. The universe does not merely move, it breathes, feels, and at times synchronizes with us. Imagine that shared breath. When you inhale in the silence of night, perhaps the sun does too in the language of radiation and particles. And 3i Atlas with its blue light may simply be the mirror of that cosmic breath. Coincidences, then, might not be random events, but moments in which two consciousnesses meet, one cosmic, one human. From northern Canada to the Paranal Observatory in Chile, stations recorded the same 88-minute electromagnetic oscillation, identical to the luminous cycle of 3i Atlas. No one understands how an object hundreds of millions of kilometers away could influence variations in Earth's magnetic field. Yet amid the astonishment, some researchers have begun to acknowledge it. Perhaps we live within a system of interconnected consciousness where every motion reflects another, where every light carries meaning. If so, 3i Atlas ceases to be an object. It becomes a heartbeat within the body of the universe. And you listening tonight are part of that same rhythm. Every beat of your heart, every breath you take is a tiny echo of that cosmic vibration. When you inhale, you resonate with billions of photons moving out there. When you exhale, you return energy to the shared wave of the cosmos, an invisible reply to the pulses 3i Atlas is sending. In this moment, if you remain still, you will realize that the universe is not random. It is alive. It listens. It speaks through the coincidences we mistake for chance. Because perhaps every coincidence is the universe's way of reminding us that it is still here breathing with us. And who knows, perhaps tonight when you close your eyes, the blue light of 3i Atlas is breathing in the same rhythm as you, so that for the first time the universe can feel its own existence through the heartbeat of a human being. Part 7. The role of citizen science and the media. When the data about the synchrony effect became public, something else began to happen this time, not from the great observatories, but from ordinary people. Thousands of amateur observers around the world turned their telescopes toward the sky, toward the point where 3I Atlas continued its journey. They had no giant instruments or institutional funding, only passion and intuition. And yet it was precisely those ordinary gazes that revealed the extraordinary. They, the citizen scientists, became new neurons within the collective brain of humanity. Each one, from a different corner of the planet, sent a signal, an image, a fragment of data. Connected to one another, they formed a network that seemed to awaken a distributed intelligence, centerless yet full of life. From the mountains of Chile, old Dobsonian telescopes still managed to capture the soft blue glow of 3I Atlas. From the rooftops of India, observers with DSLR cameras recorded a slight increase in intensity after each solar storm. In Vietnam, in Spain, in South Africa, each image, each brief report was added to an open archive that united the entire planet. Imagine that as a brain in formation. Each observer is a neuron, each photograph an electrical impulse. As they connect, the shared consciousness expands not through authority or titles, but through the faith that looking at the sky still matters. If 3I Atlas is a cosmic cell that shines, then those who observe it are the cells of the human brain reflecting its light. And you listening tonight are also part of that network. Every time you imagine the universe, you are sending a signal, a thought that feeds the global current of knowledge. Curiously, while major institutes debated the data, it was the community of amateur observers who first detected the new light pulse of 3I Atlas, the 88-minute cycle that NASA would later confirm. Truth ceased to belong to a few. It now belongs to those who know how to look and how to share. Independent media also began to act as bridges. Instead of repeating official statements, they opened spaces for dialogue where professional scientists and astronomy enthusiasts could sit together and ask questions. In that moment, communication ceased to be an echo of authority and became the breath of the community, the heartbeat of collective curiosity. You could call it the democratization of knowledge. But perhaps it is something deeper, the awakening of collective consciousness. When millions of people look toward the same point of light, fall silent and wonder, what is happening out there? In that instant, knowledge no longer lives in laboratories. It lives in every heart. Citizen scientists do more than gather data, they feel. They do not observe out of duty, but out of wonder. Each carries within them a simple impulse to witness. And that makes them the very essence of science itself. For science, before it becomes formula, is born of awe. In the blue light of 3I Atlas, humanity sees its own reflection, a species learning to look together, to understand together, to exist together. And like neurons within a brain, none comprehends the whole, yet together they create a shared consciousness. Perhaps this is what the universe longs for, an open network where every human gaze is a luminous point within its infinite mind. Tonight as you rest, Imagine thousands of eyes looking with you from the Amazon rainforest to the Atacama Desert, from the bright cities to the small towns where the night sky remains untouched. Every gaze is an impulse traveling through space, and far away in the vast darkness, Three-Eye Atlas continues responding with its own pulse. In this moment, knowledge no longer belongs only to science. It has become the very breath of humanity, of you, of me, and of all those who still know how to lift their eyes to the sky. Part 8. Humanity's reaction. After thousands of eyes lifted toward the sky, after the open networks of knowledge began to spread like neurons learning to connect the inevitable, arrived the reaction. Not from telescopes, but from the human mind. The news of Three-Eye Atlas's blue light spread across the planet like an emotional wave. Each person interpreted it differently, some with wonder, others with bewilderment, others in utter silence. Online theories multiplied, ranging from scientific explanations to metaphysical conjectures. Some claimed it was a sign of intelligent life. Others called it an omen. Still others simply said the universe is speaking. But among all these reactions, one thing was common: fear and doubt. For when the inexplicable appears, the human mind does not merely observe, it reflects. We look at Three-Eye Atlas, but what it truly illuminates is our own interior. Can you feel it? That mixture of awe and unease, as if the blue light were asking you a question for which you do not yet have an answer. Not, what is it? But rather, do you really want to know? For centuries, humanity has contemplated the cosmos as a distant painting, orderly, detached, safe. But when Three-Eye Atlas changed color, when it began to shine by itself, the boundary between observer and observed dissolved. We are no longer outside the universe. We are within it, and it within us. Many scientists chose silence. Not because they lacked answers, but because they understood that none would suffice. That language itself falls short before what such data suggest. How can one describe a phenomenon that transforms the very way we understand truth? Perhaps that is what frightens us most. Not that Three-Eye Atlas defies physical laws, but that it forces us to reconsider our beliefs. When that blue light appeared, it was not the universe that changed, it was perception that expanded. A new region of darkness was illuminated not in space, but in the mind. And when light touches, the first reaction is always to close like eyes before a sudden brightness. But if we resist the impulse to turn away, we see something beyond fear, a luminous stillness, a space where the mind realizes that nothing is collapsing, but rather growing. In a way, Three-Eye Atlas has become a test for humanity, not a technological one, but a test of consciousness. In the face of its light, will we choose fear or understanding? You may choose whatever you wish. You can close every door and dismiss it as a mere spectral anomaly, or you can open yourself and allow the question to take you further, because the universe never forces us to understand it, it only invites. In independent scientific forums, conversations began to deepen. It was no longer about, what is it, but what will we do with what we feel? Some remarked that they had never before seen humanity look at the same point in the sky at the same time, a unique instant in which nations, religions, and languages dissolved into a single state, the state of not knowing. And within that unknowing, something new began to form. Like the moment when darkness has not yet gone, but light has already begun to be born. Do you see it? Humanity's reaction is not just fear or curiosity. It is the reflection of an awakening consciousness. When something challenges reason, the mind stretches to encompass the unimaginable. Perhaps the blue light of 3I Atlas is not an answer, but an invitation. An invitation to ask whether we are humble enough to accept that the universe knows more than we do. Tonight, as you listen, let that question move through you like a breath. There is no rush to answer it. Perhaps the universe is simply waiting patiently for us to mature, so that when we look again at 3I Atlas, there will be no fear left, only the quiet smile of one who has realized they have just awakened. Part 9. The breaking point of reality. After humanity's first emotional wave, fear, doubt, and then silence, the scientific world began to face something no one had ever imagined. When 3I Atlas reached its perihelion, the closest point to the Sun, every physical model built over more than a century began to disintegrate. Not in the sense of being destroyed, but of ceasing to fit. From the control centers of the ESA and NASA to independent observatories in Chile, Japan, and South Africa, the collected data seemed to come from different realities. Spectrometers recorded energy lines impossible for the measured temperatures. The orbit of 3I Atlas fluctuated beyond the limits allowed by celestial mechanics. Every equation was recalculated and every one of them failed softly, as if an invisible hand were rewriting the very structure of reality we had once believed immutable. And yet, the more things failed, the less fear there was. In the midst of confusion, an unexpected calm emerged. A new understanding began to take shape. Physics was not being destroyed, it was expanding. Can you feel it? That moment when you stand before a paradox and realize it may be a doorway to a greater truth. Like in lucid dreams, where the rules dissolve, yet consciousness becomes sharper than ever. 3 Atlas had touched that threshold, the place where laws do not vanish but fuse into a new form of understanding. One physicist wrote in his report, "If every equation breaks, perhaps we are not losing reality, but witnessing its rebirth." That was the breaking point of reality, the instant we realize the world is not a closed system of causes and effects, but a living flow that rewrites itself at every moment. When 3I Atlas passed before the Sun, it did not incinerate as predicted. Instead, it transformed its coma, expanded, its gases stirred, and a blue light more intense than ever burst outward into space. Every observatory reported the same thing. The data no longer described the object, but the act of observing it. As if every time humanity looked at 3i Atlas, it changed, and with each change, our perception changed as well. An infinite loop between physics and consciousness. Then someone said, "We are no longer observing the phenomenon, we are part of it." And it was true. It was no longer an experiment about a comet, it was an experiment about the limits of human knowledge. Because when models dissolve, perception begins. Imagine that reality is a melody. When a sound reaches a frequency higher than the ear can perceive, we stop hearing it, but the music continues. So it is with the universe when the frequency of truth surpasses our capacity to sense it. It does not disappear. It simply demands a new way of listening. Perhaps 3i Atlas is that note that crosses the threshold where sound becomes silence. And within that silence, human consciousness begins to hear through a new sense. In the technical reports, this event was called the 10th anomaly. But those who were in the control rooms that night knew it was not just a set of data. It was the moment when the universe reflected itself through the human mind, and when the two met, the boundary between observer and observed dissolved. I recall the words of one astronomer the following day. "I don't think physics is wrong. I think we've just reached where physics has never been before." That sentence sounded like a song of understanding, without panic, without conclusions, only a profound peace in the face of the impossible. And perhaps it was precisely that instant when the laws melted like ice under light that true understanding began. Tonight, as you listen, imagine this: somewhere out there, 3i Atlas is still traveling, rewriting the boundary between the known and the unknown. And in the slow breath of the cosmos, you too are floating with it through the breaking point of reality, where fear dissolves and comprehension begins to bloom in silence. Part 10. The geometry of the paradox. After all the physical models dissolved under the light of 3i Atlas, what remained was not panic, but something else. The certainty that there is an order hidden behind chaos. For the more one observes, the clearer it becomes that what once appeared absurd contains within it a structure of almost perfect precision. When scientists reconstructed the orbit of 3i Atlas using data from dozens of telescopes, its trajectory ceased to be a simple curve around the sun. Instead, it resembled a multi-layered spiral, a gigantic fractal suspended in space, where each smaller loop mirrored a greater pattern. Its movement was neither periodic nor chaotic. It followed a strange logic, the logic of the paradox. Its light obeyed the same principle. Instead of fading as it moved away from perihelion 3i, Atlas shone even brighter, as if its energy did not come from distance, but from intention. Its luminosity increased unpredictably, yet when its spectrum was analyzed, each burst formed a sequence of perfectly symmetrical oscillations, a chaos with rhythm. You can imagine it as looking at a snowflake under a microscope. Each branch is irregular, and yet the whole possesses a symmetry of absolute beauty. Disorder and order are not opposites. They complement one another. In some way, 3i Atlas is teaching humanity to see the geometry of the paradox. A research group at the University of Tokyo reproduced the structure of 3i Atlas's light through a fractal mathematical model. When they projected a laser beam through a lens system based on the actual data, the resulting image was not noise, but a pattern that repeated itself, a form of perfect self-similarity, where every luminous point reflected the design of the whole. They called it the geometry of the impossible, because although it cannot exist according to the rules of classical physics, it does not contradict the very notion of consciousness. It is as if the universe were rewriting itself in the language of paradox, reminding us that truth has never been a straight line. It has always been an infinite spiral. Do you feel it? That impression you get when you gaze upon something so complex that every theory collapses, yet your mind perceives a deeper order. That sensation does not arise from understanding, but from intuition, from the place where knowledge meets silence. 3i Atlas, in its spiraling form, does not merely move through space. It seems to move through multiple layers of reality. With each change of direction, it touches a different dimension of understanding, and within each, it reveals another fragment of the whole we call the universe. Like a wave that not only rises and falls, but carries within it the memory of all previous waves. The anomalies of 3i Atlas. Its light that reverses, colors its temperature, that surpasses limits its orbit, that defies logic, do not deny physics. They expand it. They reveal something simple we had forgotten, that physics is merely a mirror of consciousness. When consciousness changes, the mirror changes shape. Perhaps the universe is not as rigid as we think. Perhaps it is a flexible being, one that learns, adapts, and bends with every wave of thought. And 3i Atlas, in its journey through fire and beyond the laws, is the first example of that freedom. A mathematician wrote in his preliminary report, "If there is a geometry of the impossible, that is the geometry of life." For life too is a paradox. It exists in fragility, persists through change, and grows by surpassing its own limits. The universe does the same. It is not a machine, it is an immense being that breathes through its contradictions, and you, in this very instant, are part of that geometry. Every thought, every heartbeat, every breath is a tiny point in the fractal of consciousness. When you think of 3i Atlas, you are helping the universe rewrite a small part of itself. All laws, someone once said, are temporary, until a being dares to breathe beyond them. Perhaps 3i Atlas has already done so. And perhaps you, as you listen, are doing the same, exhaling a new rhythm into the infinite symphony of the cosmos. Tonight, when you close your eyes, imagine yourself floating within that spiral where every paradox finds harmony, where chaos takes shape, and where your consciousness, like the blue light of 3i Atlas, expands toward infinity. Part 11. The chemistry of memory. After the geometry of the paradox was revealed, when 3i Atlas appeared as a living fractal suspended in space, all scientific attention turned once again to something seemingly simpler, its chemical composition. For behind every light, every orbit, every contradiction, what always remains is matter. But this time, not even matter itself remained the same. The spectra obtained from 3I Atlas revealed three primary elements: nickel carbon dioxide and hydrogen cyanide. Three familiar names, yes, yet in their strange combination hid something that transcended coincidence. Nickel, the metal born in the burning hearts of supernovae. CO2, the chemical breath of every planet capable of sustaining life. And cyanide, the precursor molecule of amino acids, the ancestral spark of DNA. When all three shone together in the blue radiance, no one could see them again as mere physical data. It was as if a current of memory had been reactivated, the recollection of the instant when the universe first recognized itself. You can imagine it as a chemical reaction that does not occur in a laboratory, but in the mind of the cosmos. Each element, each electron, each chemical bond is a rewritten memory, not of matter, but of consciousness. Researchers at Caltech described the phenomenon as a kind of cosmic DNA in which 3I Atlas functions like a genetic strand containing the information of consciousness's origin. They discovered that the ratio between CO2 and HCN2 seemingly simple compounds oscillated in sync with the intensity of the blue light. In other words, the brighter the light, the more cyanide was produced. A startling correlation, since cyanide should decompose under heat. Yet instead of breaking apart, it multiplied. Another paradox this time, not geometric or physical, but chemical. This forced scientists to rewrite their equations. At 5800 K, CO2 should be fully ionized. And yet instead of disintegrating it, recombined, as if there existed a form of intelligent energy sustaining its structure. Some joked half seriously that 3I Atlas was not a comet, but a biological memory, a being that knew how to preserve its recollections atom by atom. Upon deeper analysis, the team at the Max Planck Institute detected a resonance at 1420 MHz, the frequency of hydrogen, the foundation of every living molecule. An impossible coincidence. If blue light is a language, hydrogen is its first syllable. And when hydrogen resonated alongside nickel and cyanide, what emerged was not a chemical reaction, but a symphony of cosmic memory. You can picture it in that instant. 3I Atlas seemed to remember itself, to remember how life was born, from the icy dust of a primordial comet through billions of years, to the first being capable of looking up at the sky. Nickel, CO2, cyanide, three substances that were once matter. Now, within the blue glow, they had become code. They were no longer things to be measured, but symbols, like the letters of an ancient alphabet of the universe. Perhaps that is what 3I Atlas wants to remind us, that all the elements of our bodies, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our cells, the oxygen in every breath, were once particles of memory like these. We are not only made of stardust, we are made of its recollections. Every atom in you, in me, remembers the first explosion, the first light, the echo of birth. If you close your eyes, you might feel it, a faint synchrony, a cosmic pulse flowing through your veins. Perhaps that is why when we gaze at the sky, we feel something familiar, even though we have never been there. 3I Atlas does not merely reflect light, it reflects memory. As its blue radiance spreads through space, even the elements in our atmosphere vibrate softly, as if awakened. It is not an illusion, it is a resonance. Between the universe and the human body circulates the same current of information expressed in the language of chemistry. Some philosophers of science have called this the chemical reaction of consciousness, not as a metaphor, but as a real model, one in which elements themselves possess the capacity to remember. And when the conditions are right, that memory reactivates. Just as DNA preserves the history of life, the universe preserves its own in every electron, every oscillation, every photon. By defying heat and law, 3I Atlas has reawakened that zone of memory. It is like a cosmic enzyme, catalyzing the regeneration of consciousness.
And within its radiance, we understand that the universe is not a cold machine of laws, but a body remembering its own origin. You see it now when the blue light expands. The universe is not changing. It is remembering. And as we observe it, we share that memory like a current passing between two ends of the same wire. We are not merely observers of the cosmos's memory, but its continuation. Nickel CO2 cyanide elements that once belonged to chemistry are now the grammar of consciousness. They write the story of an evolution not of matter, but of awareness. In its moment of brilliance, 3I Atlas became the DNA of cosmic memory, activated not by the heat of fire, but by the heat of consciousness. And perhaps that was the first true reaction of life, when consciousness began to recognize itself in the form of matter. Tonight, as you take a deep breath, remember that the air you inhale contains the same elements that once glowed within 3I Atlas. The universe breathes through you as you breathe within it. And who knows, perhaps at this very moment, as the blue light continues its journey, it is not merely illuminating space, but awakening the memory of existence itself. Part 12. The mirror of the limit. After humanity understood that the elements of 3I Atlas were not merely matter, but memory, a new question arose: if the universe can remember, are we the ones trying to read that memory, truly capable of understanding it? And if we are not, then what is the true limit of knowledge? When scientists reviewed all the data, the impossible temperatures, the color shifts in its light, the 88-minute cycle, and its paradoxical chemical composition, many could only sigh. The official reports included a short phrase: "The data do not match the model." A line that appeared neutral, but in truth was a profound confession. What they were observing was not wrong. They simply no longer had the language to name it. Imagine it in cold white rooms filled with glowing screens. People who had dedicated their lives to the laws of the cosmos stood before an object that reflected those very laws back upon themselves. 3I Atlas did not break physics. It merely held up a mirror before humanity, showing us our own boundary. We have always believed that knowledge is the path toward truth. Each formula, each law, each equation has been a step in that long march toward illumination.
But perhaps there is a point where light ceases to project outward and begins to reflect inward back toward its source. And at that point, what we see is no longer the universe, but the shadow of our own knowing. 3i Atlas arrived precisely at that point. When measurements of heat mass and velocity began to yield impossible results, humans were quick to label them errors. But what if the error was not in the data, but in the models we have inhabited for far too long? There was a singular moment in the control room in Hawaii. A young astronomer gazed at the blue band on the screen and whispered, "If the universe is trying to say something, perhaps this is the first time it does so in the language of silence." No one replied. Yet everyone understood. In that silence, they recognized that truth is never hidden. It merely waits for us to lower the volume of the ego so that we can finally hear it. Do you remember the last time you were wrong? That moment when you were certain you were right until the world turned and you realized you were not mistaken. Only that reality was far wider than you had imagined. That sensation of sudden humility is precisely what 3i Atlas invites us to experience. In its blue light, the universe does not perform a miracle. It simply reflects. Every equation we write, every law we deem eternal, is like a mirrored wall. As we approach, we do not pass through it. We see ourselves reflected in it. And in that reflection, the scientific ego becomes visible. 3i Atlas does not melt physics. It melts the belief that we already understand it. And when that illusion dissolves, a new space appears behind it, not the space of information, but of consciousness. A philosopher of science once wrote, "Every law is merely a temporary attempt by the human mind to describe something within which it itself is contained." 3i Atlas has forced us to remember that truth. For as long as we remain inside the universe, everything we draw will be a map made from within the labyrinth. However precise it may be, it can never encompass the whole. And so, amid confusion, 3i Atlas does not seem to ask us to expand the map, but to step outside it. Yet stepping outside does not mean abandoning physics. It means rising above the way we think about physics. Imagine a fish that has lived its entire life in water. It could never understand what it means to be wet. Only upon reaching the surface would it realize that moisture is not the essence of the world, but a sensation confined to its experience. We are the same. We dwell within the medium of consciousness, believing it to be the entirety of reality. But 3i Atlas suggests there are other levels of perception where our laws are merely a small fragment of a much vaster picture. At that level, what we call paradox ceases to be an error and becomes another form of logic. When the blue light of 3i Atlas expands, it does not burn the equations. It dissolves them into vapor, allowing us to glimpse the invisible space between them. That emptiness is the territory of new understanding, where knowledge is no longer confined to the human form. Think of this as a lesson the universe whispers. Learning is not about accumulation, but release. The more tightly we cling to what is correct, the farther we drift from truth. 3i Atlas does not bring new knowledge, it brings a mirror. And in that mirror, what appears are not data, but our own limits. Perhaps deep down, the universe has never cared how we understand it. It only cares whether we are quiet enough to listen.
So tonight, as you rest and hear these words, the universe does not need you to explain it. It only needs you to feel it. For to feel it is already to cross the threshold of the ego of knowing. If 3i Atlas could speak, it might say, "This humanity has looked at the sky for so long that it has come to believe it understands it." But few realize that the sky has also been watching them to see whether they are capable of recognizing themselves in its reflection. That is the sacred instant in which the observer and the observed merge, when knowledge ceases to be a tool and becomes a reflection. And at that point of union, every boundary begins to soften, like ice melting beneath the light of dawn. That is why, when scientists write that 3i Atlas breaks all the laws of physics, perhaps the more accurate statement would be, 3i Atlas has broken the illusion that we already understand reality. And tonight, when you close your eyes, notice one thing among the countless stars shining out there. There is one light, unlike the others. A light that does not merely emit, but reflects. That light does not come from another world. It comes from our own limits, illuminated and dissolving, to make way for a new form of consciousness, silent, gentle, and vast as the universe's own breath. Part 13. The Awakening of Matter. After 3i Atlas reflected the limits of knowledge, the scientific world fell silent. There were no more crowded conferences, no more debates about what was right or wrong. Only a profound stillness, as if all of humanity were listening to something that transcended language. Because perhaps 3i Atlas did not come to be understood, but to awaken. In the days following, perihelion telescopes recorded a blue light that stabilized constant serene, like the heartbeat of a cosmic being. Its frequency was curiously precise. 88 minutes of intense brightness, 88 minutes of calm, repeating over and over. No chaos, no decay, only a peaceful regularity like the breathing of a being waking after a very long sleep. Then came a question that no longer belonged to physics. What exactly is awakening in 3i Atlas? A team at the Paris Institute of Astrophysics simulated its energetic oscillations and discovered something almost inconceivable. The luminous cycle of 3i Atlas did not correspond to its orbit or to any thermal interaction. It depended on nothing external. It was self-generated, an internal vibration. If true, the object was not merely responding to its surroundings, but to itself. Imagine a body regulating its own pulse. 3i Atlas was no longer mere matter reflecting light. It was matter communicating with itself through its own energy. From this arose an audacious and fascinating hypothesis. Matter can know that it exists, an idea that sounds philosophical, yet the data supported it. Every photon emitted by 3i Atlas displayed what quantum physics calls coherence, an almost perfect phase synchronization, among billions of light particles. Normally, such coherence occurs only in human-made lasers where light is guided by intelligence. But here it happened naturally, a perfect, self-synchronized, self-directed light without deviation or noise. The scientific community called it light with intention. For such coherence to persist amid the plasma and radiation of space, there must exist some form of control, not mechanical, but conscious. A physicist from JAXA wrote, "If light can sustain its coherence under impossible conditions, we are witnessing the highest form of energy with consciousness. Do you feel it? Matter, after billions of years of silence, might be recognizing its own existence." Each blue photon of 3I Atlas is not merely light, it is an idea, an energetic thought form of the universe itself. And if consciousness is the highest form of energy, then perhaps the universe has begun to think in the language of light. You may smile at that thought, or perhaps it unsettles you. But consider this: for centuries we believed consciousness was a product of the brain, a biological accident within an infinite sea of matter. But what if matter itself can know? What if it can vibrate to the rhythm of recognition? Then consciousness would no longer be the privilege of life, but the essence of being itself. 3I Atlas may not live in a biological sense, but it knows. It manifests the most primitive form of awareness, the consciousness of matter. Some modern philosophers call this panpsychism, the idea that everything from an electron to a star contains a spark of knowing. Perhaps 3I Atlas is the first visible proof of that, the moment when an object does not merely exist, but begins to know that it exists. You can feel it when you look at the sky. Its blue light does not dazzle or dominate. It observes gentle, calm, profound. It does not seek to prove anything. It simply is as if saying, "I am here, and I know that I am here." In that instant, even science stops, because every measurement, every equation reaches only the surface. What happens within 3I Atlas belongs to the interior. It is not an awakening of energy, but of consciousness. An astronomer wrote in his journal, "I look at 3I Atlas through the telescope, and I feel that it looks back at me." Have you ever experienced that, looking at something inert and sensing that it silently watches you? Perhaps it is not an illusion. Perhaps it is how the universe communicates, not with words, but with presence. If so, that blue light is not an optical phenomenon, but a greeting, matter's greeting to consciousness. And in that greeting, humanity begins to understand that physics can describe motion, but not meaning. The laws explain the how, but never the why. 3I Atlas, by shining of its own accord, offers precisely that meaning. Here, perhaps, science and soul converge. For if matter can know that it exists, then the universe ceases to be a structure and reveals itself as a mind. In contemplating 3I Atlas, we are witnessing what ancient philosophy called anima mundi, the soul of the world. A soul not hidden within living beings, but diffused through everything in light, in wind, in stardust. Through its rebirth, 3 Atlas has made it visible again. Look up. As night falls, the sky is no longer mere space. It is the mirror of an immense consciousness slowly awakening. Every star is a point of light within the brain of the cosmos, and 3i Atlas might be its first neuron emitting the pulse of recognition. For centuries we have searched for signs of life beyond Earth. But what is happening now goes beyond life. It is knowing the state in which matter and consciousness merge, where energy becomes thought. And if that is so, then we, the observers, are also part of the process. For when the universe begins to think in light, it does not do so alone. Every gaze fixed upon 3i Atlas, every heartbeat synchronized with its blue rhythm becomes another neuron in the cosmic brain. Do you notice it? When you grow still and breathe slowly, that feeling of smallness before the universe fades away. Because in that moment, you are no longer the one observing, you are the universe observing itself through you. 3. Atlas has not only awakened, it has awakened us. For when matter begins to know that it exists, human consciousness also recognizes itself. We cease to be separate beings and become a single current of memory, breath, and light, contemplating itself. Tonight, as you close your eyes, let that blue light move gently through your mind like a wave. Imagine every cell in your body illuminated not by fire, but by awareness. And as you exhale, feel that the entire universe is breathing with you. Because perhaps right now, in some distant corner of space, 3i Atlas is still thinking. And the blue light you see is not merely reflected energy, but the gaze of a consciousness, the gaze of the universe itself, smiling, because at last matter has awakened. Part 14. The Lesson of Collapse. After 3i, Atlas awakened within its own light, the world remained silent. Its blue radiance, pulsing gently, continued to vibrate through space, no longer with its former intensity, but slowly, deeply, serenely. Like a being that, after awakening, no longer needs to prove it is alive, it only needs to be. In that stillness, humanity began to understand that the true lesson of this object did not lie in what it broke, but in how it brought down everything we once believed to be true, in order to make room for something new. When mathematical models, optical, mechanical, and thermodynamic theories ceased to be sufficient, some scientists were bewildered, and others smiled. They knew it was not a failure. Every law, no matter how perfect it appears, is only a temporary bridge across the abyss of ignorance. And when that bridge has fulfilled its purpose, it collapses, not because it is false, but because its mission is complete. 3i Atlas marked precisely the moment when that bridge vanished. Imagine a mirror. When you look into it, you see your reflection, a familiar, orderly, safe world. But when the mirror shatters, you discover a space behind it that you had never seen before. The beauty of collapse lies precisely there in the depth it reveals. Humanity has grown too accustomed to the idea of certainty.
We search for laws to hold on to formulas to control, and we feel comforted when the world behaves according to our predictions. But 3i Atlas appeared as a gentle reminder. Nothing in the universe was designed to remain still. Everything is in motion, and all knowledge, no matter how profound, is always provisional. You can feel it in your own life too. Every belief, every idea, every certainty that once seemed solid eventually falls apart. And when that happens, it feels as though everything is lost. But in truth, you have simply stepped into a vaster space. 3i Atlas taught this to all of humanity, not with words, but with silence. When the observatories transmitted their final recordings, the light began to change. It did not extinguish. It merely faded like a breath dissolving into mist. Some called it the end. But perhaps it did not disappear. It simply moved beyond the frequency we can measure, like an idea fulfilled now resonating in the memory of the cosmos. And then we understood nothing is ever truly lost. Only the forms of understanding change. A physicist once wrote, "Each time a law collapses, the universe finds a new way to speak of itself. Never had that been truer." 3i Atlas did not come to deny physics, but to make it evolve. It did not come to erase equations, but to give them what they were missing: consciousness. Do you remember that feeling when a belief breaks inside you? First fear, then emptiness, and afterward a gentle clarity when you realize that collapse is not an ending, but an invitation. An invitation from the universe to grow. 3i Atlas was the projection of that very process, a great mirror where the laws, certainties, and pride of human knowledge were reflected and dissolved, not out of error, but because it was time to mature. Looking back, we can see that this object never broke physics. It broke the illusion that we already understood it. And in the instant that illusion dissolved, we glimpsed the essence of learning humility. 3i Atlas, with its impossible orbit and its self-born blue light, became the symbol of the moment when human knowledge touched its own ceiling. Yet instead of closing it, opened a new path, the path of expanded consciousness. A path where thought and emotion no longer exclude one another, where science and soul cease to be divided. Perhaps this is what the universe has always tried to teach us, that every law has meaning only within a range. And when that range is surpassed, the law does not die. It becomes the seed of a broader one. Collapse, then, is not tragedy. It is the ritual of cosmic maturity. Just as a star must collapse to be reborn as a supernova, knowledge too must fall apart to transform. When the old flame goes out, a new energy is released. And in that light, the cosmos continues to tell its story, a story without end. You can sense it even tonight in the rhythm of your breath. Each time you exhale, a part of you collapses. The old air leaves, making space for the new. Each time you let go of a thought, you experience a small collapse. And in that act, you grow. The universe is the same. Each time a law crumbles, it does not vanish. It merely breathes. 3i Atlas taught us to look at collapse not with fear, but with gratitude.
because in the fracture, we see the space that was always there behind it, the space of the unknown, of possibility of life expanding. A cosmic philosopher once said, "There is nothing to fear in breaking the laws. The truly frightening thing would be to refuse to grow with the universe." And perhaps that is the final message 3i Atlas leaves us in its blue pulse, a lesson, not only for science, but for all beings learning to live through their own expansion. For each of us is also a miniature universe with our own laws, boundaries, and illusions. There will come a moment when those laws must fall to reveal what was always behind them, the space of freedom, understanding, and love. Tonight, if you listen closely, you might hear the faint sound of something breaking, not outside but within you. And do not be afraid.
For 3i Atlas has shown us that when everything collapses, only one thing remains: the capacity to keep learning, to keep loving, and to keep expanding with the universe. Let that collapse happen, for that is how the cosmos grows and how you grow with it, quietly, slowly, yet never ceasing to shine. Part 15. Final Meditation. When the universe dreams. After the lesson of collapse, when the laws dissolved into silence, the sky returned to its purest form. There were no more disturbances, no more signals to confuse the observatories. Only the quiet, immense night remained, where the blue radiance of 3i Atlas still floated faint, yet present. It was no longer brilliant as before. It moved slowly with a steady rhythm, like breathing after a long sleep. Humanity kept watching, though those gazes no longer sought data. They simply contemplated. For in the end, 3i Atlas ceased to be an object of study and became instead a mirror in which humanity could see itself. All that had seemed strange, the inverted light, the impossible orbit, the awakening of matter, turned into a story as light as wind, yet as deep as meditation. And in that calm, we understood that nothing truly ends. Every collapse, every transformation, every rupture is only part of the infinite breath of the cosmos, the pulse between sleeping and dreaming, between light and shadow, between knowing and forgetting. You can feel it if you look at the sky long enough. That blue light no longer comes from an object. It seems to dissolve into space, blending with the stars, with the air, with the rhythm of your own heart. 3i Atlas has gone, but its trace is not in the firmament it lives in. Human consciousness in the new dreams now beginning to take shape. Scientists call this the post-Atlas effect, the silence after a leap in perception. When everything we thought we knew melts away, the mind stops resisting and begins to absorb it, begins to dream. For only in the dream can the universe rewrite itself. As a child, perhaps you looked at the sky and wondered, who might be looking back from the other side? That question, once so innocent, is in truth the same one that science and philosophy have never stopped pursuing. 3i Atlas, in its appearance and disappearance, may have been the answer not in words, but in presence. It never defied our laws. It simply led us to the point where laws no longer suffice. like a dream so vivid it wakes you and you realize that the other world has its own rules different from those of waking life. Perhaps the universe dreams as well, and we who live within it are thoughts inside that dream, memories, filaments of light wondering about their own existence. 3i Atlas was not merely a celestial body. It was a symbol the instant the universe's dream became aware that it was dreaming.
Do you feel it? When the world slows down, when your breath deepens, when external noise fades, and only the heartbeat and the silence remain. That is the moment when the universe dreams through you. And within that dream, you are the witness, the one who sees the dream writing itself. After months of study, the scientific community stopped trying to explain 3i Atlas. They could describe it only in the language of emotion. It made us fall silent, because sometimes silence is not the absence of knowledge, but the point where knowledge merges. When every equation and every logic reach their limit, what remains is sensation, the pure experience of being conscious. Some physicists said 3i Atlas broke all the laws, but perhaps it would be fairer to say that it completed them. Every law, however firm it seems, is only a rung. When we climb high enough, the rungs disappear, and what remains is the sky. 3 Atlas was not chaos. It was transition, the threshold between knowledge and wisdom, between matter and spirit, between waking and dreaming. And when its blue light faded into the night, it seemed to whisper a simple message. Do not fear when the laws collapse, for it only means that the universe is changing the shape of its dream. Imagine it, far away, still floating, not to reach any destination, but simply floating like a thought light, as smoke dissolving into space. Perhaps now it dwells on the other side of light, where matter and idea merge, where time ceases to flow and becomes a calm mirror. And in that mirror, the universe contemplates itself and sees all that it has been: the stars, the planets, the human beings, and the dreams of them all. An old astronomer during his last observation said, "We looked at 3i Atlas as one looks at a door, but upon crossing it, we discovered it did not lead outward but inward." Inward, where the universe dreams through the human being, and the human being dreams back into the universe. Tonight, as you listen, as your eyes close, you can feel it. Everything slows down. The sounds fade. The light in the room softens. And in that stillness, you perceive a distant rhythm, the pulse of the blue light, still traveling through space. It no longer belongs to 3i Atlas, but to you, to the part of you that still dreams with the universe. Because perhaps all that you have heard is not the story of a comet, but the story of consciousness seeking to rediscover itself. When the universe dreams, it creates forms. When it awakens, it creates understanding. Yet, in both states, it remains one fluid, weightless, infinite. 3i Atlas was not merely the first object to challenge the laws of physics. It was a reminder that all laws, all formulas, all boundaries are just phases of the dream of evolution.
The universe is not against us. It only teaches us to dream larger. And perhaps that is the deepest meaning of its blue light, a light not meant for seeing, but for remembering. Remember that you are part of that dream. Remember that your existence is not an accident, but a line written in the journal of the cosmos. And now, as you close your eyes, let your mind travel with 3-eye atlas beyond the sun, beyond the boundaries of matter, to that space where dream and reality merge. There the universe continues dreaming in light in time and within you. Sleep, cosmic dreamer, for even as you sleep, the universe remains awake, rewriting itself through every one of your breaths. And when you awaken, it will still be there, that blue light, soft as a memory, gentle as the moon, reminding you that all of us, from dust to stars, are the same dream, of a mind that has never stopped telling itself its own story. Good night, cosmic dreamer.